Hello and welcome to Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. I'm your host, Sophie Shake, as always, joined by Kyle Ramnerine and Cody Wiles, and we are all clearly in the holiday spirit, if you couldn't tell. If you're listening on the podcast, please hop onto YouTube and check out our nice Christmas Santa hats that we have going on. Start with you, Kyle. How you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm good, man. Ready to spread that holiday cheer. Excited about the Raptors. What more? What more can I ask for?
Yeah,
Yep.
holiday cheer and the Raptors. I like the combination. The win record may not agree with your holiday cheer, but that's okay. We know what the season's all about. Cody, how you been, man?
Fantastic. Still in Saskatchewan. I'll be back in Toronto for the next episode, but living life here. Christmas is in a couple days. So, yeah, we got a little special, fun episode, a little different today. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I hate to be that guy to ask about weather, but we just started getting snow in Toronto. If you weren't aware on the weather here, Cody, and it's starting to finally look like a white Christmas. How's it been out in Saskatchewan?
Oh man, don't want to ask. It's bad. It's like it's like minus 30 the past couple of days. It's actually getting better now. But I'll go to the weather app when I open it to check it here, and it automatically opens to Toronto still. So I was seeing like +4, and there's like blizzards outside. I'm like, okay, that's great.
Ah, well, what can you do? Well, that's for all our Saskatchewan listeners. Hopefully, you enjoy that. But you know what this is with Run It Back. We're going to recap another week of Raptors action, go over our key takeaways. We have a new segment after that we will introduce, so please stay tuned to find that out. The 905 report, as always. And then, last but not least, the schedule look ahead. But with that being said, boys, let's just get right into it and run it back.
All right, let's recap another week of Raptors basketball. And the slate was pretty light this week with just 3 games on the schedule. So again, shouldn't take us too long to cover it all. But starting off with the Bulls and the Raptors. So our action starts off as the Raptors face off against the Chicago Bulls. The game was pretty closely contested for the most part until the fourth quarter. The Bulls held the Raptors scoreless for the first 2 minutes of the fourth, allowing them to get the lead by double digits. Despite being down, the Raptors were not out. Thanks to the efforts from RJ Barrett and Grady Dick, they were able to fight right back into this game. Grady would knock down a clutch 3 to cut the game to 3, but it just seemed like the Bulls had all the answers, with Vucevic and Talon Horton-Tucker sealing the game. Grady would finish this game with 27 points, and RJ finished off with 32 points and 9 assists. Up next, we have the Nets and the Raptors, and this was an interesting game to say the least, as the Raptors rolled out the youngest starting lineup ever in franchise history against the Nets. And this was another tough one, as the Raptors were without their starting center Jakob Poeltl, and boy did it show on the rebounds and in the paint. And despite going up in the fourth, the Nets would just not go away. It was Cam Johnson who came alive in the fourth and just lit the Raptors on fire to help take the lead and never look back. And they answered each Raptor bucket and eventually took the victory. Moving on to the next game, the Raptors faced off against the Rockets, looking to get back into the win column. And Jacoby Waters showed off he was in for a career night as he scored the first 14 points for the Raptors. And things were looking good for the Raps as they headed into the second half, leading 51-57. But that's where things started to go downhill. The Rockets would come back storming in the third, and it was led by Dillon Brooks. The Rockets would continue this momentum into the fourth, ballooning their lead to double digits. And with Scotty Barnes having a rough game, it looked all but over for the Raptors. However, Jacoby Walter, Grady Dick, Ocha, and Jamal Shed came through for the team late in the fourth, mounting a comeback to cut the lead 113-110 with 22 seconds left. And it just seemed too little too late though, as Dillon Brooks would hit a free throw to put the Rockets up 4, and with Ocha missing a 3 on the other end, that would spell the end for the Raptors. Even with the loss, the rookies did show up and they showed out. Jacoby Walter scored a career high 27 points, and Jamal Shed finished with 11 points, 10 assists, and 6 rebounds. So I guess there's always a bright light somewhere. You just gotta find that silver lining, boys. All in all, the Raptors finished the week 0-3 and are now 7-22 on the season. They are now on a 7-game losing streak and sit 14th place in the Eastern Conference. So it looks like we got some things to discuss, so let's get right into it.
All right, boys. Another week of action over 3 games, obviously, are done now. Scotty Barnes did make his return for people who did not see that. Emmanuel quickly, most recent reporting is that he is inching closer to a return, so hopefully we do see him back soon. He's doing pretty much all practice work besides contact, which obviously is the final step. So we'll see if he's back soon. And then Jakob Poeltl has not made his return yet to the lineup from his groin injury. So, Kyle, I'll start with you. What did you really take away from this week of Raptors basketball?
First, this is probably obvious, but I was saying last week with Scotty being out, we'd probably see a return of Point RJ, which we kind of did. He had 9 assists in the Bulls game, and that Grady would not return to superstar form, but return to form before the Scotty injury as well, and he did with 27 points. So, but my main takeaway though was against the Nets without Jakob, just how we got destroyed in the paint. Just looking at it right now, the comparison, the Nets out rebounded us 53 to 34, and the scoring in the paint. So it just goes to show you how much of an impact Jakob has on this team. And I think some people do take him for granted when he is here. He is one of the defensive anchors. He protects the paint. He fights for those boards. And without him, we were just getting like nailed in the paint.
Yeah, if your team like trade Jakob, like that was a perfect example of like how hard it is to play competent basketball without like a center, and he means so much. He fits like it was bad to watch. But I guess my biggest takeaway was from that Nets game, and we had the youngest starting lineup ever. Like that was super cool. And even if whoever the 9 players played, and Battle and Shed came off the bench, so that's still very young, even off the bench as well. I I mean, ties into the injury conversation. Unfortunately, why this happened, RJ Barrett down with an illness. Again, Jakob Pertl had that groin injury. Was that he slipped against the Bulls? Is that what happened? Was it against the Bulls?
Yeah, it
Was
was
that
against the
before?
Bulls. It was in the second half. He took just like an awkward spill and he left that game and he hasn't been back since at the time of recording this.
Yeah, Davion Mitchell with a shoulder injury now.
Yep.
So again, we can't talk about injuries anymore. This
Yeah, I
is
was gonna
getting
say, Cody, we
ridiculous.
talked about this. No more injury talk.
But yes, it was, even though they didn't win, even though they lost to the Nets, even though they were favored, it was still kind of cool to see all the young guns start and play together. I thought there was a good moments. Ochai had 20, which was he was the leading scorer for the team, so I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I'll agree that I think that game was fun to watch. Well, actually, let me rephrase. I think that game was interesting to watch. Raptors Nets probably isn't a fun watch most nights, but they did make it a interesting game. And to both your guys' point, I think it showed the organization and the fan base both sides of this whole Jakob Pertl trade not trade debate. Because you mentioned it, Cody, the youngest starting lineup ever, and in some ways, it's probably what most fans kind of imagined a Scotty Barnes lineup should look like. A bunch of shooting around him, a ton of spacing, a mobile like movement, heavy big in Jonathan Mobo. And to some degrees, you saw that pay dividends in parts. That third quarter, the Raptors hit 7 of their 15 threes. Like they really caught fire. Ochai Abaji and Grady Dick were kind of nailing it. Scotty Barnes was moving the ball a lot. Even the rest of those players around the wings were able to make some good passes out of those situations. But then you see what Kyle mentioned is like the half court offense really stagnated, especially down the stretch. There was that 2-minute mark of the fourth quarter where the Raptors' lead had just gone away. Cam Johnson torched them for the most part there. He was on fire. But also just like their offense completely stagnated. It was a lot of isolation. It was a lot of just like chuck up a shot above the break three from Scotty that was pretty ill-advised, to be honest. But like he wasn't getting much movement from his teammates. And how much could you have used a Jakob Pertl to screen somebody open there, right? Or how much could you have just used him in the short roll for an easy bucket? Like Kyle mentioned, like he really just makes like so much easier for everybody else. On the defensive side, those drives from Cam Johnson or Ben Simmons kind of manipulating inside the paint. It makes all the difference. So like both sides kind of saw positives for their argument, which is why this Jakob Pertl debate is so interesting. And I think it's a lot of fun. I did write about it for Raptors Republic. It's on the website right now. And I kind of laid out both sides in that argument as well. And like the answer is, I don't think there really is a right answer. It goes down to like what your preference is. Like you said, Cody, you can be that young, really fun team, but you're probably going to end up with that really ugly loss. Or you bring Jakob Pertl back, and maybe that ending goes different, and the Raptors pick up a win where Scotty Barnes comes out of it a better player. Who knows? So I think that was the interesting part.
Yeah, there wasn't, I don't know about you guys, but there wasn't much else from this week. Only the 2 games. So it was really just, we got to see the young guys, got to see what the team life without Jakob Pertl, life without RJ Barrett, who we'll get into later in this episode as well. But yeah, overall, not too much. I mean, a second 6-game losing streak they're on now, and it's not getting any easier. I mean, maybe we'll save it for the look ahead, but they got a gauntlet coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the last thing I'll just add, Cody, is like we're starting to see the competitive, fun losing buckle a little bit. You mentioned it. The game against the Nets was the only game all season the Raptors have been favored, and they weren't able to keep up the whole ATS like streak. They're great against the spread this season, but they lost that game. They were favored by 2.5, and you saw it for most of this week that like there was a lot of just sloppy basketball at times against the Bulls. Like besides Grady Dick kind of making things like interesting towards the end of that game, it was a pretty bad basketball game between the Bulls and Raptors for the most part. The fans have to watch 18 turnovers by the Raptors in that game. Like, just the ball is being mishandled a lot. And again, you're missing Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel quickly, two of your ball handlers. I understand that. But like I don't think you left that Bulls game being like, wow, this was like a young, scrappy Raptors team, other than maybe already dictated. And same thing with the Nets game. That end of game execution was just poor. It wasn't good. And in some regard, we're not going to blame the Raptors because injuries explain some of that away. Fatigue explains some of that away. But that's the consequence of not purposely losing game because it is injuries, but because you're losing so often, the energy is hard to stay consistent. These are athletes who want to win. So for me, my takeaway is like the competitive losing, like the allure of it is starting to buckle a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see as we get closer to deadline, once these losses start getting a little uglier and uglier as we go, which is a bit of a prediction, like how much more chatter is there going to be around all this stuff, and like what moves are going to be made? How reactionary is the front office and the fan base going to be? We have no real idea. Again, this is all happening in real time. So I think that is kind of where my eyes are going. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
No, I'm kind of with you right there. I feel like we're going to get a lot of our answers once we kind of hit that trade deadline of where this team wants to go this season, what kind of direction they want to go, if they want to do the competitive losing, or if they're going to favor the Twitter team tank, because right now it's I feel like it's just like it's getting demoralizing with the injuries with the team as well too. Like the team morale is kind of down as well. A lot of their stars are falling, so maybe that does have a factor to play into it as well. But it's just like it's hard to see. It's just hard to see because it's been such a tough season for the team, and they got to keep their heads up. But again, I think mainly we'll see what we really want to do when the deadline hits, who we move, if we move anyone at all for even that point.
Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be any major shocking at the deadline.
Yeah.
We know the guys who are going to be in the conversations. We know who could potentially get moved. And I mean, I can almost guarantee you the front office wants a high draft pick this year. Why wouldn't they? I mean, at this point, maybe going into the year, there was some like maybe we can make a play-in push, but with the amount of the injuries it's gone, and to this point, like we're almost halfway through the season and we don't even have 10 wins yet. Like we're not going to get 10 wins by the new year.
Yeah,
I think
I'm pretty sure mathematically they're on pace for around 20 wins right now.
Like I think you just kind of got to lean into it a little bit more. I mean, you can already see that they're kind of leaning into it, like just by the way things are happening, and all of a sudden dudes are popping up on the injury report out of nowhere. Like, I mean, I might be mistaken. Was Davion Mitchell? Was there a certain play, or was it just kind of all of a sudden he had a shoulder injury?
So when I was at that game against the Nets, Darko was asked about the injury report. Obviously, because the RJ Barrett one was very surprising to people. Darko did mention that like he was feeling sick coming in. RJ Barrett, that is. He spoke to team doctors, and team doctors were the ones who kind of made the call on him. But for Davion Mitchell, he did not really say much. He kind of just said that he has a shoulder sprain and he's out tonight. Like there was no real follow up. There's no information besides that.
And I mean, Samson and Lewis were joking about on their mailbag episode that I think Samson trained for a marathon longer than, or in a short amount of time that Brown's been reconditioning. So, I mean, yeah, let's.
At that game, like, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt again, but like he was there for all of warmups, like just shooting, doing his routine. Look, again, I'm not a doctor. Like, I don't know what reconditioning looks like internally, but he was just doing his regular routine. He looked fine, just taking up shots, smiling, laughing. It wasn't like he needed, like, if you're thinking about a guy who's reconditioning, he's probably going 110% in these warmups to get back up to speed in his routine. He's just leisurely doing his thing. Like, it looks like he's been there all season pretty much with how he was going about it. So, like, yeah, I'm with you. The Brown thing is still pretty confusing to me.
And like, yeah, there's no need. They're not going to rush anybody back, right? So that's where we'll leave it because injuries. Ooh. Not much analysis you can provide.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Injuries suck, and the Raptors have a lot of them. I think is basically the bow on that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, I feel like that's all we got for like this week so far, and just like transitioning over to our new segment that I'm kind of excited to do with you guys. I don't know how often we're gonna do it, just because I don't want the takes to get repetitive, but it's reacting to your Raptors hot takes. So we only have like about 4 from the fans so far, and then we'll do 1 of each from us. So just throwing up the first hot take, I'll read it out to you guys here. The dynasty starts after you, quote, applies to RJ Barrett. So what do you guys think about this? I start off with you, Zolfi. What are your thoughts on this one?
Look, if we're rating it, let's come up with a system. How do we want to do this? Do we want to rate this from a scale of 1 to 5, let's say? Like 5 being it's a really hot take?
Yeah, I say we rate it, and then we have 5 being a really hot take, and then give our reaction if we agree, disagree, type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's fair. And again, we do have more hot takes in this, so we will be reacting to a couple more, I think, depending on how interesting they are. So please leave your thoughts in the comments, whether
Mhm.
you agree with these takes and your other takes. We have more that will be coming, I believe. But with RJ Bear, the dynasty starts after you. On a scale of 1 to 5 of if this is hot or not, I'll give this a solid 3.5. I think this isn't like the craziest take, but I think it's a little hot to assume that right now for a guy who's near the top of your team in scoring. He basically takes over all the offensive responsibility. He is on a more favorable contract than either of Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickly. Granted, he's in this contract longer. He's going to come up on his deal sooner, but he is around the same age as those guys. So are we chalking this up to the fact that he's just not good defensively? I'm assuming that's where this is coming from. Or there's also the idea that like, hey, if we do get a high draft pick, who's going to be pushed out of the starting lineup? And I guess this is throwing on RJ Barrett. So like I see it. I see the vision here of like, hey, you move on from an RJ Barrett when you get, let's say, a Cooper Flag, and then you kind of accumulate some assets for him. So I don't know. I'm not gonna agree with it yet. So I'll say it's a hot take that I don't necessarily agree with right now.
I feel like a lot of fans, just from discourse, that are on the side of RJ Barrett isn't like a long-term piece, and I'm not so sure that like trading RJ would be a good thing. Like I understand it's not a cleanest fit. Oh yeah, we had multiple RJ Barrett. Like it was like this is part of it. Like there was multiple people who
Yeah, one
were
person just straight up just wrote should RJ Barrett or like no, RJ Barrett should be traded. Like, that's all they said.
so like I understand it's not the cleanest fit, but the Raptors need his rim pressure. He's no one attacks the basket better than him. He's now taking that playmaking jump. He's doing a little bit more in PNR. He's utilizing that rim pressure with the playmaking that he now has to get teammates open. He's great in transition. Raps want to play fast. So there is a lot of parts of his game that fit. And right now he's having a career year. He's only 24. He's not a finished product.
Yeah.
And so I did a little, I went and got some numbers a little bit. And if we're talking about fit and future and team building, it's all about what you are next to Scotty Barnes, right? So Barrett and Barnes have only played 34 games together, 800 minutes exactly. This is before the Rockets game, 800 minutes exactly. Well, I mean, at least this season, they have the best two-man net rating of any pairing that's played over 200 plus minutes. So I think even if you're going to say it doesn't work, I think you can't say that because they've barely played together. I get it stylistically that there might be some concerns, like especially RJ Barrett defensively. That's probably where a lot of the concerns come from, and maybe the 3-point shooting. But I think they have not played very much together. And when they have played, it hasn't been with the full starting lineup or the projected starting lineup that we want. So I think on a winning team, he might not be your top scorer, but like you were saying, Zolfi, if he's like your go-to guy, like off the bench, or he's in the starting lineup, but you let him run the bench minutes and he's able to do all his things, attack second side closeouts while he's in the starting lineup, and then when he's on the bench, he's able to have more of the ball in his hands. I think he could fit long term.
Yeah, I just I it, this the timing of this doesn't feel right to have the
Mhm.
conversation, in my opinion. Like I understand where it's coming from, like you mentioned, Cody, but like you said, it's a career year. He's averaging career highs across the board, pretty much. Like, is that why do we need to have this conversation now? Like, I get it, but like that's why I think this is a hot take because you're talking about a guy in the midst of some of his best performances as an NBA player, putting it together for a very, very undermanned Raptor squad. And I just think that doesn't warrant this kind of talk just yet. Like, I get the defense hasn't been there, but like Cody mentioned, he's 24. He has the physical tools. Like again at that next game, Jordy Fernandez was there and he spoke to media, and people asked him about seeing RJ Barrett, especially with the Canadian team, and kind of what he sees from him. And he's like, RJ Barrett has the physical tools to be a good defender. He is strong, as we see when he drives the ball. He can go through players. He has the physical like size and wingspan and everything to be a good defender. It just comes down to him learning a bit more on that end and being able to add a bit more of that like a ball IQ in that sense. And I like again at 24 years old, I'm not ready to chalk him up as a guy who's never going to figure it out on that end.
Yeah.
So I'm not ready to go that far. I understand the sentiment. I'll say that where this is coming from, but I still think this is a pretty hot take.
I feel like it just comes from people who want to see Toronto quote unquote win now. I think that's what people just are kind of impatient and they don't want to see the whole rebuilding process, or it's just like they just don't like RJ Barrett. But I don't know why. Like he again, you guys said he's young. Like we've seen him grow, and this is the kind of foundation you got to build alongside Scotty. And again, we haven't seen a fully healthy BBQ squad run together. Like, so I can't just say trade RJ Barrett when we haven't seen the team fully perform. And then even then, I want to see what this team would look like in the playoffs, like in a play-in game when it matters the most. Like, is RJ gonna perform for us in the playoffs? And it's like a lot of questions that are still unanswered before I say, all right, trade this guy. You know, it's like, why trade him now just because his value is high? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. I feel like this is more of a. I'll agree with Zolfi. I'll say like a 3 or 4 on the hot take scale. I feel like it's up there because it's just too early right now to start calling for RJ's name.
Oh, I guess I need to give a rating. Hey, let's go. Let's go. Probably a bit higher to me. I mean, but I guess if everybody's saying it, is it a hot take? I don't know. Like, I feel like there's, like I said, I think it's the larger sentiment. But to me,
Yeah,
it's like personally, it's like a 4. Like, it's
yeah.
like I wouldn't do it, but
It's crazy. All right.
Fair enough.
So the next take we got here is a little bit in the past, but some of those DeMar teams in the 2010s are better than the 2019 Raps. I'll break the ice on this one because that's actually insane to me. That's actually ridiculous. Because I feel like the 2019 Raptors are one of the best championship teams ever assembled. You know, and I feel like maybe the
Ooh,
second
that might
best.
be a hot take. I
What
mean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing, but that is a very bold statement to make. There's been a lot of championship teams,
it's
Kyle, if you
been
didn't know.
It is, it has, but I really like. It's no bias here. I really like that team. I really like that team, and I feel like maybe the second best Raptors team under the 2019 team was. This could be a hot take in itself too. Was the 2016 Raptors, you know? But the 2010 teams, it's hard to compare because they were just getting manhandled by one man in Cleveland and Miami the whole time. So it's it's hard.
All
But
right, we
2019.
don't need to go there, Kyle. We know you love LeBron James. Get
but
over it.
2019 got over that hump. They got Kawhi. He was the X factor. They were a well constructed team. They had the defense. They had the ability to change lineups. Like, I just don't. I don't know. What do you guys think? This for me, this is like a 5 on the hot take scale.
Cody, you can go first. I looked at some of these numbers, so I'll nerd out in a second. So you go ahead.
all right, yeah. Well, it's extremely hot. Like, we're burning here. Yeah, like if you just think it was just Kawhi Leonard, then I mean, I don't know what to tell you. The team was absolutely stacked. Are you kidding me? Like, and if we're just gonna compare, like, I don't know, 2019 to 2015, 2016, 2014, whatever team you want to go off, like, well, Kawhi is better than DeMar, right? Like, that's if
Yeah.
we're just going player for player, right? I mean, the bigs of Gasol and Ibaka were better than any combo of bigs they had. Like, the Raps probably during that time was JV and Biombo together. That was probably their best pairing in that era. So I think Gasol and Ibaka were better. And then also in the championship year, you had the best versions of Siakam, Powell, and Van Vliet, who all took jumps that year. I mean, maybe you could say Kyle Lowry was better in 2016 if you want. Like, the numbers say he was, but he was in a bit of a more reduced role on that team and still put up great numbers outside of like the scoring pretty much. So, I mean, yeah, it's wild take. 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, I think I'm with you both. I'm with you both at a 5. Initially, I was, and I still am, mostly because the person said multiple. I look
Yeah,
through all these
some.
teams.
Yeah.
I can see a very light case for one team that has a chance to say, you could say, again, that team obviously did not win a championship. But then I was looking through it. There's only 2 teams that I think are even like part of this conversation. So the 2018-19 Raptors team, like, let's just start there with the team that won the championship. You had a 58 win team. They were second in the Eastern Conference, right? Their offensive rating was 5th overall. Their defensive rating was 5th. Their net rating was 3rd. We know what this team was. They were great defensively. They were just a great two-way squad. And if you look at the roster, Pascal Siakam, he won Most Improved Player. We're talking about hardware. All-stars for Kyle Lowry and for Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi, 9th in MVP, 6th in Defensive Player of the Year, All-NBA second team. Their starting lineup was Danny Green, Pascal, Kyle, Kawhi, and we'll say Serge Ibaka because he was there longer as a starter before Marc Gasol got there, and obviously they kind of flip-flopped after. And like you guys mentioned, off the bench, Fred VanVleet. You had JV there. At one point, he was obviously gone. You had OG Anunoby. He didn't really play in the playoffs or much of that season because of injuries. Norman Powell was doing his thing. You mostly know the lineup for this team. They won a championship. They're really good. The one team that I think has the best case to have an argument with DeMar DeRozan was the year prior. That team has a franchise record with 59 wins. They were first in the Eastern Conference. And if we're talking about their offensive and defensive rating, it was better. They were the second best offense in the league that year. They were fifth on defense. Their net rating was second as opposed to third from the 2018-19 team. And then like hardware wise, I don't think it's as great as a championship team. This is where it kind of teeters a little bit, but you had all-star nods for Kyle and DeMar. DeMar was 8th in MVP voting. He made All NBA second team, and then both Fred and Jakob received some votes for Sixth Man of the Year. You had DeRozan, Lowry, Serge Ibaka, Jonas Valanciunas starting, and then the wing spot was kind of a hodgepodge of some players. You had Pascal starting a couple games, but it was mostly OG Anunoby. He started 62 games. You had Fred off the bench, CJ Miles. You saw a bit of that bench mob going on. So I think that's the only real team that has a case. Again, they have a franchise record in wins. They were top 5 on both ends. They were just a juggernaut of a team. But like you said, Kyle, they ran into that man in Cleveland who kind of tormented them all that time. I think that was the year when they lost to DeMar DeRozan. It was like, hell, what are we going to do? They have LeBron James, something along those lines. And that's when you kind of realize that mentally they were cooked against LeBron. Like they just weren't able to get over that hump. So I think that's the team that's the case. The only other team, and I think, Kyle, you mentioned it, that I think has a very light case, and which is why I think it's just so hot take, because I can't think of more than one, is that 2016 team that went to the conference finals, which again was against LeBron James. And looking back at it, they were also a very fun team. Second in the Eastern Conference, 56 wins, so still less than the championship team. 5th on offense, 11th on defense. Their net rating was 5th overall. So again, pretty good team. They kind of had that nice run. You had all-star nods, like you would have assumed, for DeRozan and Lowry. Lowry finished 10th in MVP, 13th in Defensive Player of the Year. So somebody probably saw some vote for Defensive Player of the Year for Kyle Lowry. So shout out to that. That was kind of fun. And all NBA third team. The only other person who got any attention was Patrick Patterson. He got a vote for Sixth Man of the Year. So shout out to him. The starting lineup was really fun. DeRozan, Lowry, Jonas Valanciunas, and then so on the wing positions, it was James Johnson, Norman Powell, DeMar Carroll. Those guys all kind of swapped in and out. They started like 30, 20 games each. Can you guys guess who the power forward was for that team that went to the conference finals for the Raptors?
2016?
Yeah.
Was it
Patterson?
No. He wasn't. Well, he wasn't the starting. This guy, he started 76 games.
It wasn't Bismack, right? When Bismack had that generation.
No, he wasn't there at the 4. I can give you a really big hint. He was Argentinian.
Oh. Damn, bro.
Wore a thin headband, had long, straight, greasy hair.
Oh, Luis Scola? Is it Luis Scola?
Yeah, Luis Scola. Can we remember Luis Scola on the Raptors? Started 76 games for the Raptors that year.
But he just that's a gap in my memory. When did that happen? I don't remember that.
I don't blame you for having that gap in your mind, because Luis Scola, granted, as fun as he was, wasn't an all-time Raptor. But yeah, look, that team was fun. They went to a conference finals. They had some moments. They were able to take a couple games off LeBron and the Cavs. We all remember the moments. Bismack blocking that alley-oop. Like it was a lot of fun. I don't think that team matches up against the 2018-19 Raptors. Like the depth on that team going down the line, just all across, was just so much fun. Remember, OG Anunoby did not even really play for them that year. You had Norman Powell and Fred VanVleet coming off the bench. Like this team was stacked all around. How many players on that team could probably make an all-defensive team? You have Danny Green, Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, Kawhi Leonard, hell, Kyle Lowry in his prime, if you really think about it. You have OG Anunoby, who, like I said, wasn't even playing. That team was stacked. This is a 5 out of 5 hot take. I went on a rant there with all the numbers and everything, but like I think it makes the point.
No, and yeah, just to put a stick in it, like if your best argument is the team the year before, a lot of those players were just better versions of themselves the next season. Like I mentioned, like Pascal, Fred, Norman. So that just like if you're going player for player, it just trumps all of it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's the best Raptors team ever.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like people don't understand too, like during that time of 2018, 2019, a lot of teams were built to beat one team specifically, and that was the Golden State Warriors. You know, I feel like if you take back those early 2016, 2015 teams, they can't keep up with that. They probably couldn't keep up with the level of offense from the Golden State Warriors. They've never seen a team like that before, with Kevin Durant, with Steph Curry, with Klay, all in their primes, you know? So, and again, if you put them up against the 2019 Raptors, they're just better constructed, better defensively, better offensively. So it is a hot take. It's kind of crazy. And again, this is assuming that DeRozan performs in the playoffs against them. So like, we have to remember that too. Like people were getting on DeRozan because he wasn't performing in the playoffs, and that was a big gripe against him. Anyways, though, hot take. We all agree it's 5 out of 5. We'll move on to the next one. and this one is coming from IG Instagram. If the Raptors draft one of Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, or Dylan Harper, they are winning a title by the 2027 or 2028 season. I'll let you guys take this one.
So yeah,
Oh,
that's like 2 years from now, right? Like
Yeah, it
2027.
is
Yeah, that'd be 2
yeah. So I
seasons
guess we're
removed
basically
after this
basically
one.
2025. So yeah, 2 years, 2 to 3 years.
I mean, goodness me. I mean, that's maybe not as hot as the previous one, but that's just because it can't be a 5 because the last one's a 5, it's a 4.8. Like that's pretty hot because just in general, like team's still young. I mean, I get it; they'll be a couple years into there, but I mean, the we talk about it all the time. The starting lineup hasn't even played together yet till this point. So if I mean, maybe it all gels together, this and that. Maybe they draft a superstar out of one of these guys and they turn him into one of the best players in the league. That would be amazing. So I mean, you know what? Actually, there like maybe there's a runway.
Talking
Like
yourself into it.
I mean, maybe like I don't think you would have like I mean, you see what these young teams are doing now. Like I don't think in 2 years it'd be any close to like what the Thunder are doing or anything like that. But I mean, young teams can you can take a jump. So maybe it's less hot than I'm thinking. But I mean, yeah, it's maybe by 2028. I can see 2028 more than 2027. But
Yeah.
still, I don't know if there's going to be one by 2030, guys.
Yeah, like I hate being like again practical. Also, this is a 4.5 hot take for me. A part of it is all the stuff you mentioned, Cody. Another part of it is like where is the slippage coming in the Eastern Conference? You can see it a little bit, like maybe by in 3 years, what are the Bucks? Damian Lillard is going to be older. Giannis, I still think he'll be great, but he'll obviously be older. Chris Middleton, who knows what he's going to be like? Obviously, Brook Lopez is old. The Bucks are old. That's my point. You have the Miami Heat. What are they going to be? If Jimmy Butler is he even on this team by the time the trade deadline of this season, let alone in 3 years? Like you can see some potential slippage, but Boston isn't going anywhere. I don't think the Cavs necessarily go anywhere. They have a roughly 3 to 4 year window, especially with Donovan Mitchell re-signed for a bit of time there. The Knicks probably are going to be decent for the most part in that time. Orlando Magic are going to be better, like with a healthy Paolo and Franz. Like
Atlanta and Indiana are, they're
they'll be
younger
climbing
too,
around.
so,
Yeah.
And we're thinking only East because they're talking about winning the chip, so we got to talk about the Western Conference.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like the OKC Thunder, I feel like they're gonna be their prime by then. SGA is gonna be in his actual
very good
prime,
point.
and then Wemby, who knows what the Spurs are gonna be like then? It's just a lot of growing team, and I don't know who people think Cooper Flag is. I know he's a great player, but I don't know if he's coming out right out of college and winning us a chip in 3 years because that would be a generational run if he came on the team. And again, we don't know.
Look. We've seen it. Like Dwayne Wade was a thing.
Yeah.
He did it in his first couple of years. Like obviously it doesn't happen a lot, and he did have Shaquille freaking O'Neal on that team. But I think to that point and to what we've been talking about is like there's a lot of depth on those teams as well. You had Tim Hardaway like coming off the bench or like as a guy on that Miami Heat team. Granted, if I'm wrong about that, I'm sorry. It was a while ago. I was young. But the 2018-19 Raptors, like how many players did we just talk about that were just so good that were coming off the bench? How much depth there was on that roster? How many just like two-way players that were great? Like where are those coming from on the Raptors?
Yeah.
Like we talked about, they've already sunk around 60% of the salary into just RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, and Scotty Barnes. That's before RJ Barrett's current deal comes up, which is good value, we'll say, and he's probably going to get another deal if they do keep him. I guess probably where some of those comments come from moving RJ Barrett, by the way. But like they already have a lot of money invested into this current core. Where is that depth coming from? They have all these good rookies, to be fair. But like, is it Jonathan Mobo, Jamal Shed, Jamison Battle, Jacoby Walter, all those guys on rookie deals going to be at that point where they are the bench unit of a championship team? To this person, it seems like it, but am I there? Am I going to say that yet? No, this is why it's a 4.5. This is a very hot take.
Yeah, because I don't even know how, like, say we draft someone like Cooper Flag. I don't know how, and Cody mentioned it too, how do you fit in with this team so far? Because we don't know yet. We haven't seen this team fully healthy. We don't even know how they play with each other, let alone somebody that's now coming in from college. So it's just too much uncertainties and what ifs to say, oh yeah, they're winning a chip by 2027, 2028, because it's like, what if they don't mesh together well? What if, who knows? What if Scotty's unhappy, knock on wood, with Toronto, and he's not here in 3 years? Like we'll see. It's too much on variables, uncertainties. But yeah, I think we agree too. What is like a 4.5 on the hot take scale of just it's good dreaming. I'd be hope we see another championship too, but I don't know. We'll go on.
Yeah, prove us wrong by all means.
Exactly.
Please make us wrong.
Exactly. I would love to be proven wrong. It gives us more content to make, and we're happy over here on running back. Like, we're gonna be way more happier. But move on to the next take. It's a bit in the past again. If Tracy McGrady stayed on the Raptors for longer, they three-peat like Kobe and Shaq's Lakers. And what year is this again? What, 2001, 2002, 2003, around there?
Yeah,
Like,
so
I
I
guess those would
have
be
them up. I have them
yeah.
up here. It was 99, 2000, 2000, 2001, 2001, 2002. So,
so
Let me know how hard it's like. Who's three-peating? Like maybe okay. If we were to change it to just win a championship, like just to win one, what do you? What does that change
not a
it
hot
to?
take. That
I don't
Not a
that
think.
hot
puts it
take.
down to like a 2.
Are we talking about win one championship in those 3 years, or are we just talking about win
No, just like
championship?
as long as Tracy McGrady was there.
Yeah,
Let's say until Vince Carter was there, right? What was that
I'm.
04, 05,
mm,
somewhere
yeah.
around there?
I mean,
Let's say
like,
until then, Tracy McGrady was there. They win one title.
I mean, like, if they actually unlock Tracy McGrady's true potential that he got in Orlando, then I think so. I think so. If we got prime T Mac, because even Kobe said T Mac was one of the hardest people he ever had to guard. So if we got prime T Mac, prime Vince actually meshing together, working together well, no any chemistry issues. We're talking about like a perfect chance scenario here, and they would have to go up against what, the
It
Shaq
would
and
be
Kobe
it would be
Lakers.
those Lakers.
The
Yeah.
Lakers.
Well, like, I have the stuff in front of me, but yeah, like this is an insane. What you guys thought about the last one about multiple DeRozan teams, this is what I think about this one. This is like a 12
No,
out of
this is
5.
wild. Yeah, this is wild.
Yeah, like
This-
again, one championship. I'll be like comfortable bumping it down to a 2 out of 5. I don't think that's super hot at all. They've all said it. I think they grow as players, like you said, Kyle. They reach a further potential together, especially with Tracy and Vince Carter. But like some of the teams they would have to go through, obviously that Los Angeles Lakers squad, right?
Mhm.
They got their peak with Shaq, Kobe. They won 3 championships. We know about them. Allen Iverson was doing his thing then. He took his team to a final. So you had AI 76ers. You had Tim, if you're talking about 99, 2000, around that time, you did have the Spurs with Tim Duncan and David Robinson doing their thing for that early part of that. And they won a championship in 98, 99. Like the East and West had some very, very good teams they had to go through. Oh, you want to go down to 2004 when Vince Carter's kind of in his prime? Or all right, well, you have the Detroit Pistons, who are one of the best team basketball like squads ever defensively, and they were just playing team basketball the entire time. Like there's a gauntlet of teams to go through in that era. How are you winning more than one? Like I don't get that. Kobe and Shaq winning 3 was insane enough as it is.
I mean, yeah, if we're just comparing it to, that three-peat Lakers team, I don't know who's guarding Shaq. Like Hakeem Olajuwon in his like 17th year in the league. Like I
This
don't
is bullying at that point. Shaq, that's elder abuse.
Shaq's averaging like 35, 40 because just who's guarding him, who's keeping up. People are getting in foul trouble, and then it's like we're dealing with Froby as well too. Like you're dealing with Froby against prime T Mac or Vince Carter, and it's like I don't know who we think T Mac is right now, but it's like he winning a three-peat. I don't know, bro. It might be the second coming of Jordan or something like.
That's another good point. Like who knows how T Mac develops in Toronto if he stays? You know what I mean? But I mean, it's all hypothetical conversation, anyways. So, but yeah, if we're talking about just comparing that team, I could stomach like maybe getting one. Like I could stomach that argument a little bit. But yeah, I don't even think it would have matched up very well against. I mean, it's nobody matches up well against Shaq at that time. So, it would have been hard to even get one, obviously.
I will say, interestingly enough, if you put them in this era, I see the argument more. 2 wing players who can kind of score like outside and in. Like it kind of reminds me of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown a little bit. Obviously, again, very different players, different play styles, but like I see the idea of 2 very dominant wing players. But like you said, Cody, like the game was a lot different back then. It was a lot more like big, heavy, a lot more dominant inside paint presence. Again, post up work, which these guys can do to some degree, but I don't think that's necessarily. I think it's more Tracy's game than Vince Carter's. But like, yeah, you're just not that team doesn't really match up the same for 3. Like again, 1, you squint a little and you think about it, you treat it as like you're a lovable Raptors fan who's kind of optimistic, and then, yeah, you can see potentially 1 happening with those guys, but 3, yeah, now you're smoking some Christmas crack.
And this is assuming we have T Mac unlocks his full potential, because I don't know if we're saying like Orlando T Mac on the Raptors, or we're just saying because back then we didn't know what T Mac was capable of before he left the team. Like we saw the glimpses, but he didn't go off like he did until he hit Orlando. So a three-peat is crazy. He's got to be averaging 45 a game to take down those Lakers, because it's gonna be just him and Vince at that point. Like,
all right, was that? I think that's the last one we had, right?
I think last fan one we had. I don't know if you guys want to throw out one from us, or we each want to do one, or how you guys feel about that, because I have one, and you guys might
Okay, throw yours out, Kyle.
Let her
Let's
rip.
hear yours.
Let her rip,
you
Kyle.
guys you guys might like, I'm gonna have to bear the hatred for this one, but I need you guys to seriously like hear me out and let me like let me
This
talk
is bad if
here.
you're prefacing it this much already. Just let her rip, man.
He's scared.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so uh I don't. I generally don't think Emmanuel Quickly is our point guard of the future, and and I feel like if we were to slide him over to shooting guard, someone on easier contract, easier stomach contract like a Ben Simmons would be better. Like a minimum, like a not like a crazy contract, like a minimum, like a
Okay, so
reasonable contract.
this is a two-parter. You're
Yeah.
Yeah,
saying
yeah, you had me for a little bit there, and then you just threw a
That's why I had to
curveball.
that's why I had to context it.
yeah, a team
Oh,
with no shooting. Let's get Ben. A
yeah,
team that already needs
context
shooting.
didn't help, Kyle. Context did not do you any favors.
Okay, I'm gonna cut out that second part. I'm not even gonna address.
I
that.
won't. So go ahead. You go first,
Okay.
Cody.
Um, I mean, honestly, I don't think it's that crazy what you're saying.
Mhm.
In the first part, like I mean, it hasn't proven itself. It hasn't been very many minutes, obviously, but he hasn't shown to be more of that pure point guard, right? So, I mean, that's I think if they're at the top of the if say they don't get number one, I've been thinking a lot about I've been digging into the draft. Quick plug, you can go check the Twitter. It's my pin post. It's I've been thinking about these top guys with the fit on the Raptors. Maybe we'll be doing some more draft stuff as we come along here on Run It Back. But like someone like a Dylan Harper who he's playing really well as a big body point guard who can be next to Emmanuel Quickly. Emmanuel Quickly's defensive shortcomings also have been a bit of a problem when he's on the court. Dylan could take the the more on ball guy, the bigger guard, and I think those two would be great because Dylan can control the pace. Like I would love that fit. So I've been thinking a lot about that. He needs to develop more of those skills, right? And hopefully when he gets onto the court, we could see some improvement. It's just he's been getting really bad injury luck, so it's tough for him to even make progress with what he's doing. But I don't think that's the craziest take because right now he has more of a combo guard.
Yeah, I think that's you kind of nail it on the head there. Like, I don't think it's a crazy take in saying that we don't envision Emmanuel quickly being the championship point guard of the future. Again, Kyle, the second part with Ben Simmons, I don't know what you're on, dog. Like, let's be honest. Like you said it, Cody. Say you have Jakob still there. You had a Ben Simmons who just can't shoot. The spacing there would be like a Bermuda Triangle, just like
Yeah.
sucking up all the space. Like, I just don't think it's gonna work. So I'm just gonna ignore that for your own sake. The first part with the Emmanuel quickly thing, I think we have talked about it. Like, he is more of a combo guard, and in some ways, like in your head, you can envision him. Like, you don't want to pigeonhole him back into what he was with the Knicks, but he was a really good player off the bench for the Knicks. And like, would that be a lot of fun for the Raptors? Yes. Did they pay him to be that? God, no. They paid him to be a franchise like a point guard, which is also part of this argument, which is what makes it a bit more of a hot take, is because they've kind of already given you your answer. Like, the Raptors think he's the franchise point guard of the future. They paid him to be one. They hope he's going to be one. So I think we can disagree with that, which I think isn't the craziest thing to say. But he's young enough. I think he can still figure it out. But I wouldn't be surprised. I'm with you, Cody. I think it would be better to have a bigger body point guard like a Dylan Harper or some of these guys. Some of the best passers in the league right now, especially from that position, are just bigger bodies. You know what Luka Doncic is? Cade Cunningham is a bit of a bigger body. One of the few guys who is still really good at that size. There's a couple, obviously De'Aaron Fox, the name that come to mind, but like Trae Young. But Trae Young has gone through so many iterations of that Hawks team. He's doing really, really well right now, but they've completely built that roster around him. Newsflash, that's not going to happen for Emmanuel Quickly. This roster is built around Scotty Barnes. Which is part of what makes Emmanuel Quickly promising as a combo guard, because he can play off ball so well, and the ball is in Scotty Barnes' hands instead. Or like again, you talk about RJ Barrett. So if we're talking about pure point guard, then yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. Like, I don't think it's the hottest take because we just haven't seen that table setter Emmanuel Quickly yet. Has he had flashes of it? Yes, but when his scoring gets limited because of his size, we've talked about his struggles at the rim at times. His floater game has come and gone inconsistently, so like that takes away from his game a little bit. Like, for us to really believe this, like that he can be that guy, like there just has to be more. There has to be more strides. There has to be more steps.
All right, well, that was fun. We got some 3P conversations, and McGrady didn't leave, some DeMar Teves, and Ben Simmons. That's it. That's your holiday hot takes. Maybe we'll keep it going. Send us stuff. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
maybe we'll keep it going. Comment if you want to talk about it or if you liked it. We can keep
Yeah.
going. But
What
I
what
think
I will add,
oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
Cody. I just wanted to add really quickly. Like, I know like some of these takes, it looks like we're clowning on them or we're kind of like having fun with it. The whole point is when we asked people online was we wanted hot takes, and these were all clearly very hot takes. So you did your job. So we don't want people to get discouraged by any of this. Like, if you want to throw in a take that's more reasonable, and then maybe we can debate about it by all means. But like,
Yeah.
we're trying to have fun with it. We want to encourage people to come out with your most outlandish ideas because that's more fun to talk about. Hey, the holiday season, isn't that what happens? You sit around the dinner table with your family and you debate some of the craziest stuff. I'm sure Kyle has kind of debated with all his family why LeBron James is the GOAT over LeBron James. Probably does that every Christmas if we're being honest. So keep it up. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and let's keep having some fun with it.
Yeah, it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun, and I'm sure the people saying this were also, making
Yeah,
it
yeah,
more
like
extreme than it
definitely.
was. But let's just talk about the 905 quickly
Mhm.
because we do talk about that on Run It Back. Only 2 games for them at the G League Winter Showcase. Went 1-1. Took the loss to the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. It was not a very good game, for what it's worth. And then they just won yesterday at the time of the recording against San Diego Clippers thanks to Evan Gilliard draining some clutch free throws in overtime. That little target score was kind of fun to watch. But yeah, they only had, man, injuries. They only had 7 available players against San Diego, which was kind of a bummer to see. Like they had so many people out. New signing AJ Lawson, Eugene Omarui, who had an illness, left the game in the fourth quarter against Rio Grande Valley. So I mean, overall, I mean, Zilvi, what did you think? It was not too many games, so we don't have to spend too much time on it. But anything big stand out for you?
Yeah, like you mentioned Evan Gilliard. Shout out to him. He had two pretty good games in this showcase. Again, he's a
Yeah,
smaller, twitchy guard, so seeing him kind of have his run, the showcase is interesting for me because you have players just kind of prop into your team for this because that is what the G League showcase is. Like Dennis Smith Jr. joined the Wisconsin Herd with Milwaukee Bucks affiliate, so like it's hard to really get a read on this team. But for the most part, the guys on the 905 who have been there did have a presence. Kennedy Chandler, he continues to be a very dynamic point guard for this team. The actual record of it all, like I don't think it matters a ton. Like we didn't mention it, but they went 4-10 in the tip-off tournament. That's why they only had 2 games of the G League showcase. They didn't really get to compete for the cup, whatever that means, with the G League before the season reset. So it was, hey, if we're going record-wise, technically 500 is better than what they've been in the first half of the season through 2 games. But
Mhm.
I'll just say, like, my main thing was Frank Kaminsky was a lot of fun in the second game. He had 33 points. He had a really nice like buzzer beating like inbound tip in at one point. That was a lot of fun. Like I just you can see there's levels to this sometimes, and he kind of showed it in that second game. So that was fun to see, but there wasn't really anything else out of these 2 games that stood out a ton because it was just so like not cohesive with the rest of the schedule, with the rest of the team, like you mentioned with the injuries. It was more of like we're just gonna go out, run around, and kind of see what we can see.
yeah,
Yeah, like I'll have to agree with you guys too. Like the main thing, my takeaway was Frank Kaminsky as well. You know, like we said, 33 points. He showed off his ability to shoot the three, but again, for him, this is kind of just like he's trying to get back in the league, right? So I'm not
Yeah, he's not
expecting
staying with this team.
exactly. I'm not expecting like anything crazy. The main thing I wanted to see was guys like Kenny Chandler Jr., Charlie Brown, or Kenny Chandler and Charlie Brown Jr. They did their thing. They're developing. That's the main thing we want to see here. They're hooping. Um, but not nothing crazy that I really want to nitpick from them. I liked what I was seeing, and I just hope it continues going forward with the rest of the season.
yeah. I will say just to cap it off here, I'm doing. I got pieces and video essays coming out on Oro Shamshe and AJ Lawson. I've been tracking every one of AJ Lawson's shots. So I'm trying to, I just want to see what we got
You
here.
really
So
are a 905 sicko. Like we talked about, best 905 coverage there is at Raptors Republic. No one else is as obsessed with 905 shot charts as Cody Wiles.
hey, AJ Lawson on standstill threes, he's shooting 50%, and he's shooting 50% on catch and shoot looks from above the break. So that's hey, you can't find that info anywhere else. Literally nowhere
Literally
else.
anywhere else, that info will not be available.
So yeah, I'm gonna just a quick plug. We're gonna have Ulrich Shamshe and AJ Lawson stuff coming out in the near future. But yeah, they got a little break here now, about 5 days off. 2 more games next week, I believe, and then we're into January. So the regular season now starting, and yeah, this is the time where people. This is where the grind of the early season for us it gets to pay off because this is where trades, call ups, all this stuff really starts to move on. And then hey, people want to know about these guys. You come right here to run it back.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make. It's gonna start getting interesting with the trade deadline approaching. You're gonna have guys fighting for those 10-day contracts. What's gonna happen with them? We saw it last year with the Raptors. Shout out Kobe Simmons of the world. Like a lot of guys getting some run, Moji, all those guys. So kind of going on that point, like you said, Cody, the season's gonna reset now. It kind of wipes all the way clear. I believe it's for the next 30 odd game, 34 maybe. But what are you guys kind of like looking out for throughout this next stretch? We kind of know most of the standout players on this roster. We know what we could expect potentially, but we've seen enough of a sample size to have some idea. So I'll start with you, Kyle. Like, what are you really looking at from the 905 spot when you move into the regular season?
I'm just hoping, like, because now they kind of got their footing under them a little bit. They kind of know what people's roles are on the team. Maybe being a little bit more competitive during the season, getting a few more wins. But for me, just honestly, a guy like Kenny Chandler Jr., maybe getting a 10-day, maybe getting a call up, seeing our guys develop. That's what I'm hoping for. It's not something to come out of this team. Maybe him getting. I feel like he deserves a shot. I feel like he's been playing really well. He's been impressing. He's been doing everything he needs to do. So him getting something like a 10-day at least, something with the big boys club, that's what I'm looking out for. Hopefully knock on wood, no injuries or anything like that. But yeah, that's what I'm mainly looking out for, just development and maybe a call up.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like there's a couple guys of this team who it doesn't even have to be with the Raptors. Like I think Eugene Omarui is like, I think he should be getting a 10-day at some point if he keeps playing the way he's playing. Like he's been super efficient, super physical, rebounding well. Kennedy Chandler playing good ball. I'm gonna be more player specific. Like again, AJ Lawson or Shamshay. I'm gonna be watching these guys like a hawk, projecting them and seeing how they develop. I've been watching them all year, so yeah, I'm more on the player specific side of things going forward.
Yeah, I think for me it was kind of similar to that. I'm really intrigued by like you mentioned AJ Lawson and Eugene Omarui, but just like the Canadian contingent of this team. I keep using that phrase because you have Eugene, you have AJ, and then you have Quincy Guerrier. They have been very a lot reliable for the most part for this team, and like just the element of the fact that they're from Canada and they're kind of leading the charge for again multiple times throughout games, throughout stretches of games. I think that's a lot of fun for this team. What does that mean having that experience? Either together or just individually and where that takes them. I think that's a part of it. And you mentioned him already, Cody, and you're going to do some work on him, and hopefully we'll see that soon. So over Shamshay, this back stretch is going to be really important for him. Like he had some really bright spots in these first 14 games, but also some really not so bright spots, very quiet times, quiet periods where things just weren't looking great. Yeah, I think he had one decent game in the showcase. It was the second one against San Diego. He had like 4 points, 11 rebounds, a couple blocks, something like that. So like as far as I know, like he didn't really showcase himself a lot in that. But again, he's very, very young. We've talked about this, but these reps are going to be really important for him. This back half of the season when roster turnover is happening even more, when guys are moving up and down, what's his situation going to be like? He is a two-way, so he could get some reps with the Raptors, depending on how ugly things get up there. What's that going to look like? So all these games are going to matter very like much for his development. So he's a name that, quite frankly, in the last couple 905 reports, we haven't mentioned a ton. And that's not for like he missed a couple of games, yeah, but also he hasn't really stood out. So now it's like you're a young guy, you should be a fresh body. Like, what can you really provide, and what kind of spark can you give this team? So that's another thing that I'm looking out for. It's just what does Oler Shamshay have in this back half?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it didn't even click into me. Like, I wonder if he gets games in the NBA. Like, I really do. I think he's gonna get a couple towards the end. That's my hot take, my
Yeah.
prediction, whatever. I think it'll happen. I'm just curious to see what it looks like.
I guess we'll find out.
All right, we want to end with a look ahead now here.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into the schedule look ahead, boys. That is our last segment before we wrap it up. And the Raptors, the NBA Raptors, they don't get too much time off after taking on the Houston Rockets. And we are recording this for the Rockets game, so we will have the result there in the schedule recap, but we don't know it yet. But after that game, they immediately travel to New York to visit the Knicks on the second night of a back-to-back. And then they take on John Morant, Zach Edey, and the very hot Memphis Grizzlies a couple days after, before returning home to host the Atlanta Hawks. Now, boys, some pretty good teams in there. We know the Knicks are a hot offensive team. They just dismantled the Cats' old team in the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are kind of free-falling themselves. Memphis is top 5 on both ends of the floor. No joke of a team to take on. And then you have, obviously, the NBA Cup darlings, the Atlanta Hawks. They didn't win, but they went pretty far. But yeah, Kyle, I'll start with you. What are you looking out for this week?
The Knicks, Cat. I'm looking at you, buddy. Ever since that dagger,
You're really mad about this still, eh?
bro. Because it was just Cat He's not like that, man. He's like that this season, but he's not like that. You like if you get what I'm saying? Like
You didn't have
I don't
enough
know.
of the comments just roasting us about like being
Yo,
anti-Knicks or whatever. Like newsflash, we're in Toronto. Of course, we don't like the
I'm
Knicks.
not.
Uh,
It's not even just like I'm anti Nick. It's just it was Cat doing it. It's Cat the one doing it, man. It's like I don't. Like I've always just been against. Even last year when it was like Cat, the Timberwolves, and Gobert, I was just like, nah, man. I just don't like that team. And then Cat hitting the dagger and saying, "This is me," pointing to New York. I don't know, bro. That's something just irked me in my soul. I need the Raptors to get this win. I need the Raptors to beat the Knicks, but I don't think they
right.
will. So
Breaking news: Kyle can't let it go.
can't.
Cody, what are you looking at?
Well, I mean, hey, if they don't get it done against the Knicks on Monday, they play them January 8th, right in the New Year, so you'll get even more. Yeah, it's just gonna they got a gauntlet. Like if we're talking about like what they come up like, not even just the games this week. After that, you got the Celtics and you got the Bucks, Knicks again, Cavaliers, Warriors, Celtics, all in this next sort of 14, 15 game stretch. It could it can get bad, like what this record could be. I mean, injuries should be like it should be getting healthier. So I'm genuinely if I hope the team is healthy to get a look at what the team could look like against these really good teams. It's kind of like a measuring stick kind of thing in this next little stretch, especially this next week. That's three really good teams. Even the Rockets tonight with that defense, it might not be pretty if they're not healthy. So it's just gonna be seeing how they look against these great teams. It's you could look at it as tank, whatever, but it's an opportunity to play against really good teams in the NBA.
Yeah, and to your point, Cody, that's valuable information. That's valuable like experience for the players, yes, but for the front office, that's valuable data. Like seeing the sample of what they're like against these top competitive teams. How far away do they look from those squads? We've talked about them being scrappy, the whole against the spread thing, but then they had that stretch earlier in the year when they played the Cavs and Celtics in the span of a couple of days, and you're like, they were pretty scrappy at times in those games. They were able to limit their 3 point production for two 3 point heavy teams, and like that's valuable data and information about like what works, what doesn't. And when they're super injured, you don't get that. You don't get that information to mean as much. They don't stay in these games as much, and it kind of changes things. So I think that's a very valid point for you. I will say going back to the Knicks thing, it'll be interesting. You both mentioned there's a game on the 23rd and in January. That's right between the 1 year anniversary of the Knicks and Raptors making that trade for RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly, sending OG Anunoby and Precious Achua their way. Like I'm interested to see if people start revisiting that trade, start having conversations about who won that trade, who lost that trade, like what's it at? I don't think if when we made the trade, would anyone expect that RJ Barrett would have been the main thing coming back from it? Not really. Emmanuel quickly was the haul. And not to say that he isn't or he can't be, but so far, RJ Barrett really has been the shining piece from that deal. And obviously OG Anunoby is doing his thing with the Knicks. So I think that'll be interesting. But for me, yeah, it's a bit of the same. Like, let's see how they match up against these teams. I want to see, I really hope, rather, Jakob Poeltl is back for the Grizzlies game. Jakob Poeltl against Zach Edey could be a lot of fun. Just two big burly, bruising bodies. Like you just look at them and you just think lumberjack. Like
Yeah.
you just put them in a flannel and give them an axe, and they fit right in. But yeah, those are two guys I just want to see go up against each other. I know some people have also started some chatter if the Grizzlies want to try something crazy and trade for Jakob Poeltl, that maybe they could. I don't think they'd ever give up Zach Edey for that deal, but you never know. Like some people have thrown it out there. So it is something interesting. But yeah, I just want to see the two big guys match up against each other. But I think that's all I have from this week to kind of keep an eye on. Anything else you guys want to add?
Happy holidays. That's all I want to add. Happy holidays, everyone. Hopefully, you're with family, you're with friends, you're living the dream. It's I get nostalgic around this time, so hope everybody is doing all right.
What a
Yeah,
sweet,
same.
sweet man from Saskatchewan.
I know what a great guy, bro. Like getting all festive, but yeah. I don't think there's anything else like we gotta say. Just wishing everyone happy holidays, and hopefully the Raptors get W's this week.
That is a great spot to leave it. Well, guys, that does it for this week. We want to thank everyone for tuning in for another edition of Run It Back, where we recap everything with Raptors basketball. We'll obviously be back next week to go over everything for the last 7 days. So please make sure to subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube channel to get your daily fix of coverage. It obviously goes a long way for us to find new people and bring more fans to this Raptors Republic community. And don't forget, your number one spot for your daily news, analysis, and opinions is still RaptorsRepublic.com, where we will have more work coming up in the coming days. With that being said, everybody have a great week. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Stay close with your loved ones. For myself, Kyle, and Cody, we'll see you next time when we run it back. Peace.